Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Black Health Trust. We are so happy you chose to spend this time with us, and we're going to jump right into a very important discussion that I'm sure everyone will gain a lot of information from. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to our founder, Dr. Randall Maxey.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barbara Davis-Stevens, and thank you, my other co-moderators, Dr. Ivan Walsh, Dr. Jocelyn Hines, and Ms. Randall Romero, and our distinguished Dr. Lawson as well. We do have a very good speaker for us this afternoon, but in my introduction, I had some very disturbing news, Dr. Walsh. I read an article that equated my favorite food with early degenerative mental function. They said you can't eat hot dogs anymore. And I don't know, I was brought up on hot dogs and loved them and like to go to those Lakers football game, basketball games and football games. And a good friend of mine said that on a even a bad night at Dodger Stadium, just at his booth alone, they sold $1 million worth of hot dogs. So what are we going to do in America if we don't eat hot dogs? But we do know and have talked about the dangers of ultra processed food. And one of the persons who first told me years ago about those dangers is our speaker for today, Ms. Gwendolyn Moore. She's a registered dietitian, an integrative and functional nutritionist. She's in private practice. She earned a master's degree in public health. She also has been a registered dietitian for a few years. She trained at Loma Linda University and completed an internship at Kaiser Permanente in Fontana. She also has been an expert in what we call live food, and she's been an advocate of eating healthy for years and years. And I'd like to introduce and honor Ms. Gwendolyn Moore. The floor is yours, Ms. Moore.
Okay, well, hello. Nice to meet everyone.
Oh.
Okay, so the topic today is ultra processed foods. So I normally use different video medium and not Zoom, believe it or not. Hard to believe in this post-pandemic era. So you're gonna have to show me how to share my screen. Anyone?
Okay. Simon?
Huh?
So Simon will,
Okay.
you should have the privilege. Simon, are you on?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here. All co-hosts have screen share privilege.
But she doesn't know what to click on to share.
Yeah, I use another vendor for video, so I'm sorry.
Bottom middle of your taskbar on your screen, it should be a green arrow that says share, and then you'll be able to select your file from there.
I don't have that. I have audio, video, participants, chat.
Go further over to the right on that same bar, it should say share in the middle.
Chat. Okay, so more and share. There we go. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
After you click the share, it should pop up a window, and then you select the file that you want, and then click share at the bottom right, and then it'll allow us to see what you're seeing.
Okay. Well, that's not working. I actually can talk about it actually.
You want to send them to me?
Okay.
You can start talking in the meantime. I'll get them to Simon.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to send it to you before I start talking. What is it? Okay, let me just go ahead and talk. Is that okay? So basically, in talking, we all know what ultra processed foods are, and pretty much, let's compare it to what real food is. Real food comes from the ground. It's alive. It's fresh. It has a life force. We're all familiar with watching grass grow through concrete, right? That's that life force that we're talking about. And that's the power of real foods. Processed foods, Michael Pollan had a statement, if it is a plant, eat it. If it comes from a plant, do not eat it. Okay, so they're ultra processed foods like your ho-hos, your Twinkies, your ding dongs, your Pop-Tarts. They're generated from a lab. They're low in barely any nutrition or that can nourish your cells. And a statistic that I've read is that 60% of Americans are consuming processed foods. And also another statistic that's quite alarming is that over about 60% of children have a chronic disease in the United States. And that's quite alarming. So we come from the dust of the ground, right? So what do you find in the dust of the ground? Calcium, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus. You find real food, and you'll find that those ingredients in fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, meat, chicken, fish, turkey. You find those nutrients in real foods. And unfortunately, most Americans are not consuming real food, so they can't nourish their cells, their tissues, their organs, which nourish us. And being a dietitian nutritionist, I look at health from my little corner of that elephant, cellular contamination and nutritional deficiencies. So I'm of the opinion, according to the former U.S. Surgeon General, that greater than 80% of diseases in the United States are lifestyle related. So, and I see, as a clinician, I'm primarily in adult practice, but I do see children from time to time. And it's very sad. Even if you look at what they're feeding them in the school district, everything is white and processed. The macaroni and cheese, white bread, tater tots or chicken nuggets, and it's all processed. And so I'm watching kids. They're obese, they have diabetes, and that's a problem. And adults as well. I find that adults, no matter what their socioeconomic status, how many letters they have behind their name, old, young, people are confused about what to eat. And it just goes back to real food, which we're not eating anymore. So again, the cells break down, the tissues break down, the organs break down, and you end up with an issue. Like, for instance, diabetes, definitely, and hypertension, high blood pressure, has to do with having a nutritional deficiency of the mineral magnesium, which most people don't eat as well. So let me give you a definition of ultra processed foods. And this is I'm just really reading from stats from Food Revolution Network. And in 2016, the Food and Drug and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations adopted NOVA. It's a food classification system. So they define, NOVA identifies 4 classes of foods as follows. 1, ultra processed and minimally processed foods. So we think of, donuts and hot dogs and sodas, all these sugary beverages, white flour, white sugar, pretty much all the products made from them. Okay. So that 1 is ultra unprocessed and minimally processed foods. 2 is processed culinary ingredients. 3 is processed foods, and 4 is ultra processed foods. And so I guess you all pretty much know that Kennedy is going after that, right? Going for Health and Human Services designation, and he's coming after those processed foods, thank God. Because we're in America, there's not a lot of appears not to be a lot of regulation on ingredients that can go into our food. And so there's like red dye number 2 and all types of, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, dyes, fluffers, emollients, extenders that are in these ingredients. And they're not allowed in certain other countries. Like in Europe, for instance, I believe it's Europe, don't quote me, it's another country outside of the US, where, for instance, carrot juice, they may use carrot juice for coloring, whereas in the US, we'll use an actual chemical. So, that's a problem. So the topic, ultra highly refined and processed food is all the rage right now. It's a big topic, which is probably why we're probably talking about it today. So they have also, when it comes to processed foods, they have chemists who are called flavorists. And I believe there's very few positions in the world, and they're paid a lot of money to make you addicted to your food and to make fake food taste like real food and to keep you coming back. So I know I used to teach a nutrition class in college level nutrition class, and I would have one of the assignments would be to have the students do a food guide or sort of write down everything that they ate and drank for a week and then analyze it. And it was pretty sad. I mean, you had like young adults and adults, they didn't eat anything, no fruits or vegetables. Maybe their vegetable was a French fry. And I also taught high school at one point, and children would miss breakfast because school started at 7:30 in the morning. And then when they had lunch, this is a high school, lunch was 30 minutes. And say if you had PE, it was way, 15-minute walk all the way to get up to the quad. And on the quad, they had McDonald's and Del Tacos and all of these various fast food venues there, which they had long lines to even get that, which students would just say, forget it. And then they would wait until they would go to the vending machine and get a soda, get a chocolate bar or something like that. And some of these young men will go and have football practice after that, and we used to hear about them trying to practice and falling out and things like that. So it's pretty scary situation. So some other examples of ultra processed foods are soft drinks, cane sugar, white sugar. There's no nutritional value for sugar whatsoever. Your body will break down your cells, steal the magnesium out of the cell just to process the sugar out of your body. Of course, we have our ice cream, our cookies, our pastries, our breakfast cereals. The more processed the food is, the more worse off it is for you. White sugar and box cereal. I don't know what's more processed than that. You have your frozen meals. And think about the processed foods. That's where you get your extra sodium, right? And sugar, because that's how they preserve it. And if you notice, if you're eating organic, whole, fresh foods, there's no salt in there. Fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, meat, chicken, fish, turkey. So, we understand that 1/3 of the population are salt sensitive. That constricts the blood vessels, makes the heart pump harder, trying to get the blood to flow. But where are you getting all this extra salt? You're getting it from the processed foods. And low sodium is considered to be 140 milligrams or less per serving. So have you ever looked at read the food level and label and saw how much salt was in soy sauce, for instance? Has anyone ever done that? Can they hear me?
Yeah, of course.
I
Yeah.
can hear you. I'm just afraid. I love putting soy sauce on my fried rice and I'm just messing everything up.
That's why they make low sodium soy sauce.
Aha! Well, you can do coconut aminos. You can find that in any health food stores from coconut. It's just as tasty and delicious as soy sauce, but it doesn't have all that sodium in there. And you mentioned rice, so white rice has no nutritional value whatsoever. Right? They take out the wheat germ of the rice, which has the vitamin E, it has the fiber, all of that's gone. And so it breaks down. Nutrition is biochemistry. So all that white flour and grains is going to break down into sugar. Excess sugar is going to turn to fat. When I was a clinical dietitian in the hospital, I'll never forget, many moons ago, I had a little young Asian kid come through there, and he was just in college, and he didn't have mom around to cook his meals anymore. And he came in there, ketoacidosis, blood sugar way over 500. He had blacked out, and he was diagnosed with diabetes. So I come through there. How's it going? Good, good. What do you eat for breakfast? Rice. What do you eat for lunch? Rice. What do you eat for dinner? Rice. That's all he knew how to cook. And he had these big old plates of rice, and he ate himself right into diabetes.
Mm.
Yeah, so I have a heart for college students. I think I want to make a little recipe book or something for that group, because when you go into college, you don't have, mom there to do your cooking, and you're just on your own. And what are you going to do? You're going to grab you're busy, don't have time to eat. You're going to eat some bowl of cereal. That's not gonna get you're not going to get any protein. Or you're going to grab some fast food, and that goes on. And it makes me wonder sometimes, like, they're going to be alive by the time they get out of college, you know. So we have a problem. We really need to focus on our food. To me, the foundation of health goes back. You are what you eat. It goes back to real food. I say that people tend to unconsciously create disease. It didn't appear because it takes 20, 30 years for a chronic disease to form. And then one day you get that call, you got those numbers up there, you got diabetes. Like, oh my God. I said, sorry, you've been creating it the entire time, through what you're eating. So we have an epidemic going on with that, ultra processed foods. And I'm so glad that it's a focus now, at a level where something can be done about it. It's serious. So
So, Ms. Moore, thank you so much for this wonderful information. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to answer some questions from our co-moderators.
yes.
I'm going to start with somebody. You're in Tennessee, right?
Today, yes.
Okay. Well, good. I have somebody from Tennessee who's going to do the first discussion question, Dr. Barbara Davis-Stevens.
Well, the first question I'd like to ask is a topic or an item that I am very as we used to say, I'm very conflicted about, and I'm really leaning very strongly toward the conclusion that is absolutely not healthy. What is your opinion about the fake meats?
Oh, no, absolutely not. 200,000, 20% no.
Oh my.
Genetically modified, you know what GMOs are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So GMOs, that's frankenfood,
Explain that. We have a lay audience. What is a GMO?
a genetically modified organisms, an acronym for it's GMOs. And what they're doing, they're taking species from, taking ingredients from other species, coming up with their own concoction to make their own. For instance, let me give an example. We have corn, soy. 95% of corn in the US is genetically modified. Soy, we know about soy. They're trying to genetically modify wheat as we speak, but they're taking DNA from other species and crossbreeding them and coming up with their own concoction. So what they do in the case of corn, they genetically engineer the seed in such a way if a bug eats that corn, it's going to spray the equivalent of Raid into their intestines and burst it open. So their crop is safe, but do we want to eat that? No, we don't want to eat that. So it destroys the shikimate pathway. That's your energy pathway. And that's one of the words genetically modified. That yeah, Stephanie Seneff, if you guys are familiar with her, amazing. Well, yeah, so MIT or something, but that's her soapbox. So no, so you're gonna have GMOs in there. I think it's Impossible Burger.
No
Go
more
ahead.
Beyond Meat, no Impossible Burger.
No Beyond Meat, no Impossible. Run from that as far as you can.
Mm.
You can make your own veggie burger, get you some beans. Look at the ingredients. They actually have a healthy one at Costco that's organic. Look at the ingredients and make your own. Get you some beans, some sweet potatoes, some spices, brown rice. You can make your own. Roll it up into a bowl and flatten it and put it in the oven. So no, absolutely not. I don't know if we can mention names. I don't want to get in trouble. This is going out there, but I'm not a fan of those who are behind that construct at all.
Dr. Ivan Walks.
Let me start, Dr. Maxey, by saying no more Dodger dogs for you, no more hot dogs. Stop it. Um,
I only go to games if the team's owned by somebody black.
you know what? Okay. So let me ask this. Ms. Moore, thank you so much for really digging into this for us. The challenge is so many folks don't live where they have access to fresh food, to natural food. Some of us here in the Northeast would have a difficult time growing things if we live in an apartment or a small place without enough room to grow. So when we're in those environments, just sort of a few rules about where do you find healthy foods?
Well, number one, you heard of like broccoli sprouts and things like that. Sprouts are like 20 times more nutritious as the actual vegetable. So you can get a little mason jar and get some sprouting seeds and you can sprout right from your windowsill, right?
Okay.
And then there are what they call but anyway, so there's certain things you can eat. Because I actually went to Loma Linda and they made us put together meal plans on a budget.
Mhm.
So black beans and brown rice. That's a complete protein, inexpensive. Beans and rice. There you go. That'll take you a long ways. You got your protein. Protein's important, right? You can get some sweet potatoes. You can get your what do you call those pots? Crock pot, and throw in some neck bones and some greens, and you got the sweet potatoes, baked. That's healthy food. Get real butter. Don't get the fake stuff. I can't believe it's butter. Keep it the way God made it. It's simple, whole, organic, whole, fresh. Well, things like that. So there are
It's supposed to be brown rice.
brown rice, yeah, where you get the organic, because rice is heavily sprayed with pesticides. So make sure it's organic. That way you avoid the pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides, genetically modified, irradiated. They're doing all sorts of things with food. So organic, they're not allowed to do that. I highly, highly, highly recommend organic. Unfortunately, food is weaponized. So there's no telling what you're going to get in if you're not getting organic.
Dr. Hines. Is she unmuted?
No, I'm here. So kind of to piggyback off of Dr. Walks's question, regardless of, so I'll speak for myself. I've got young kids. I don't have the time to make my own veggie burgers and all of those things. And to be honest, some of the things that are like, there's nothing about if I said, hey kids, we're having bean sprouts. Let me sprout these, like, no, that's not appealing. And we eat plenty of fruits and vegetables and plenty. My son's a vegetarian, right? Like we eat lots of fruits and vegetables, but I'm really struggling, even with awareness, to get rid of some of the so ultra processed food, junk foods, obvious, but like yogurt, right? Like yogurt's it's still a processed food, but I need it. Like I need to get people some proteins and some things to go because we're moving. We got class, we got school, we got after school activities. So what are some suggestions? Like I was curious, what would you say to a college student and right who doesn't likely have a kitchen because dorms don't have kitchens, you've got a small fridge, there's no real grocery store around. Like what would that menu look like?
Yogurt works, actually. It's real food. So processed foods are going to be created in the laboratory, right? So there, nutrition is biochemistry. You change the structure, you change the function. Your body won't recognize it anymore when you get it in processed food. So yogurt is from real food, okay? But I recommend, well, I know, well, I like to give you can make your selections, but goat milk is more biocompatible with the human body. Sheep yogurt, goat yogurt or sheep yogurt. Okay, well, Greek yogurt works fine. Okay, so you get some Greek yogurt, you get some blueberries, you can throw in some walnuts, boom, you got a quick meal. It's not cooked. You can get a blender, throw in some greens, throw in some blueberries, throw in some frozen bananas. You can get some hemp seeds. 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds give you 10 grams of protein. And you get those essential fatty acids as well, plant-based essential fatty acids. So things like that are very, very quick.
So can you back up a little bit then and to the ultra processed versus the processed and give a little bit of clarity in that space? Because when you go to things that are packaged, right, like when you try to boil it down too far, that eliminates so many things. So and you say when it looks like, if you can't tell what it used to be, I can't tell what yogurt used to be. So the fact that you said that that's safe is confusing to me. So can we back up a little bit to speak more on where's that line between, and then what about the stuff that I use to cook, right? So I cook most of the stuff I cook, but I still got to get a package for, like, I might use the vegetable bouillon seasoning and like I'm still opening packages along the way. So help me out with some of those things too.
So basically, okay, you want real food. If it's a plant, eat it. If it was manufactured in a plant, don't eat it. No, yogurt though is from milk and it's fermented. And that's some of the best foods you can eat. When you ferment food, you take it to another level because it's pre-digested, sugars are taken out, this and that. So yogurt, I wouldn't, it's this process in a sense, but it's not ultra or highly refined, not ultra processed or highly refined. So ho-ho, Swinkies, Ding Dongs, Pop-Tarts, clearly ultra processed. And now yogurt comes from real milk that's just fermented. So that would be okay. And if you're going to use like seasonings and things like that, you want to get organic because otherwise the seasonings are irradiated. And so you're not and the seasonings are awesome. A lot of medicinal benefits in it. You're like in the US, we use a pinch of this and a pinch of that. When I was in college, there were very few people in the dorms making their own meals. Me and the Indian girls, it's like, oh my God, they would use like a cup of spices. And you can smell their food from a mile away. And I'm like, am I eating food for the first time? But basically, yeah. So I see what you're saying. You just want it really, really, really simple. So as long as it's shop at the farmer's market where they put up the tents, and then try to do health food stores. I know you said there's nothing around, but yogurt would work. Okay, and you can even get some flax seeds, organic flax seeds. I'm telling people, a lot of people I find are constipated. They don't get enough fiber. So you can get organic flax seeds and you can grind 3 tablespoons a day, grind those up, and then you can throw that over the yogurt with some berries, and that works. Walnuts, that's really quick. Or oatmeal, you don't have to cook, actually. I used to think you have to cook oatmeal. And you can throw some oatmeal in there as well with some yogurt and some blueberries. Again, get into the smoothies for your own smoothies, not putting a bunch of fruit in there, but a bunch of greens and maybe one fruit to make it taste good. And then you can throw some yogurt in there, some ice cubes.
So go back, you said not putting a bunch of fruit in your smoothie.
Yeah, because it's sugar. All carbohydrates break down in sugar. So all things in moderation. So you want to have more of the vegetables because you find that people are still trying to lose weight and they're just they're getting a bunch of sugar. They're getting some juice and they're getting some 3 other fruits and things like that. No vegetables, still a lot of sugar. So I tell people try to keep your carbs to 30 grams or less per meal. You can have some, I think one fruit is enough and have the rest of them being veggies. Because a lot of times they're just still gaining weight, eating a bunch of, they're switching to blenderized food, but everything is, juice and 5 different fruits and, and some ice. And that's not going to work, you know.
Miss
Okay,
Ver-
so I can I just jump in, Dr. Maxey, because I'm just hurt and sad right now because Ms. Moore, thank you for just messing up Dr. Maxey and I. We can't go have our Dodger dogs at the stadium, and now I can't go to Smoothie King and have them put all that fruit in my smoothie. So my real question is, how do we get people like Dr. Maxey and me? How do you get us to eat right? Because we like those Dodger dogs, and we want to continue to eat at Smoothie King, and so far we're still alive. So how do you retrain us? You talked about sugar, and we've always heard about sugar being addictive, but is there a process that those of us that are old and bad when it comes to eating, how can we make it to the next decade?
Well, we can talk about monk fruit extract. It comes from a plant, it's granulated, and it's sweet and it won't raise your blood sugar. Just where they say knowledge is power. So if I can, make healthy food taste good, you know, find a way to make healthy food. And if you go to the game, Dr. Mackey doesn't live at the game 24/7. So once in a while, you know, 3 games a year or whatever, I guess it's not going to hurt. It wouldn't appeal to me because I know what it's made of, you know, but once in a while it's not going to hurt. But they do have like turkey dogs, or they have substitutes for anything that's processed out there. I actually I'm a raw food chef, and I did years ago. I used to be a raw foodist for about a year. So anything that you had with normal culinary food, we could reproduce in its raw food state, basically. So it just comes with nutrition education, and try to make make the healthy food taste good.
Miss Romero?
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question, but I have a couple comments as well. Um, we were talking about how to retrain ourselves to eat healthy, and I find one of the things that I've been doing is including my daughter in meal planning. Um, I find that it empowers her to take control of her health, and when we have healthy foods prepared, instead of waiting until we're hungry, then we're a lot more likely to eat that salad if it's sitting in the refrigerator, rather than waiting until my body's, saying, hey, you're hungry, and then I'm going to reach for something quick and easy, that's going to satisfy me. So meal planning is an important part of my schedule during the week. So that's something to consider when you're making your meal choices or planning. The other thing that I wanted to ask you is that I know most of our foods, all of our foods are monitored by the Food and Drug Administration, but when we talk about organic foods, who who is monitoring what is considered organic? How much chemicals? I mean anybody can just put that organic label onto food, and I don't think there's anybody that really says that this is organic or this is not organic. I think that's kind of a term that's used a lot and not necessarily accurate.
I think it's like CCO. They do have organization who monitors that, but it's all getting convoluted because they're trying to form a one, make everything global. And so if it's, how they have those little code bars on fruit, and with those digits, if it starts with a 9, it's organic.
Okay.
And there are, I don't know exactly who
Say it
the,
again, if it
they
starts
say
with what?
USD, a 9, the number 9, it's organic. Because sometimes it's not always labeled if it has the number 9. But so supposedly, if it says you're not USDA, 100% organic, it's supposed to be 100% organic. And they play around with the classifications, of course, right? So organic could just mean maybe 97% of the ingredients are organic, maybe 3% that are not. But if it says USDA organic, it's 100% organic. But yes, just look for the number 9. It's organic because there's like 27 pesticides on one tomato.
Wow.
And that's
Thank
kind of
you.
like, so yeah. And then you have like you heard of the clean 15, the dirty dozen. Like clean 15, it's okay not to eat organic foods if if your budget doesn't call for that. That would be like avocados. They tend to have thick skins. And the dirty dozen is like berries and things like that, thin skins. You better get organic no matter what, because they have a gazillion pesticides on there. But yeah, there's a class. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact name of who does the classifications, but I remember how it all came about. I remember there was a study done way many years back, and it was during the time of the last draft, right? Men could not pass the agility test. They were failing the agility test left and right. And so they start scratching their heads and said, what's going on? US Department of Agriculture, let's do a study. So they studied the soil of foods that were coming from produce grown in organic soil versus food that was grown in non-organic soil. And it was frightening. It was like night and day, like almost like 70, 80% difference in terms of the nutrients that were present. And the trace minerals like selenium and some of those grounds wasn't even it was non-existing. But I like what you said about meal prepping. You can get some organic, Costco has some organic foods. Grass turkey is minimally processed, and just take them, season them, roll them up in balls, throw them in the freezer, take some out, really, really quickly. And then you can get some beans, throw those in your salads. Those are different things you can do. I know I'm kind of like trying to touch all your various points, but I like what you said about meal prepping makes a big difference, because if we don't prep, we're going to grab whatever, right? Yeah. So maybe
Is
like
that
the weekend and prepping.
is Dr. Lawson on?
Dr. Lawson is on and he has his hand raised. While we're getting him unmuted, can I just ask, when we talk about things being processed or ultra processed, a lot of times the reason that's given for that is that we need the pesticides, we need things to be processed so that folks don't get sick. And I remember fairly recently this whole issue about raw milk and folks who are drinking raw milk versus the milk that's pasteurized and all of that. So is there any benefit to having things processed, and especially milk? I don't know why folks want to drink raw milk, but it seems like the other stuff is better when it is pasteurized.
When it's pasteurized, it's heated to ultra high levels. It kills everything.
Mhm.
All the nutritional value is gone, zilch. 99%, I see lots of patients, 99% of them are lactose intolerant to milk. We have milk from the wrong cows over here. We played around with them as opposed to like countries that have been around for 2,000 years. We have the different type of cow. So if you're going to do milk, A2 is supposed to be milk from the right cows. But raw milk, I'm a big believer in raw milk because all the nutrients are bioavailable. You're going to ultra pasteurize and you got all this heat, you're going to kill everything. There's no nutritional value in it whatsoever after that.
So to Dr. Walt's point, that we want to get Dr. Lawson in. When I was a child, we used to go to the farm and get raw milk right out of the cow, and he put it in a bottle, unpasteurized. And I got encephalitis. So there's something to be said about sterilizing milk. There must be some middle step that stops you from getting deathly sick. So we have to talk about that. Dr. Lawson, are you there?
I most certainly am. Just want to quickly note that some of you know, before I started in psychiatry, I was an animal researcher and was trying to get to the whole question of what motivates creatures, and discovered that most species, or you only had like a couple of receptors. You had a sweet receptor, you had a bit to eat the good stuff, a bitter receptor to avoid the bad stuff, and a salt receptor to make sure you kept your electrolytes. And that was it. So if you just depended on how things taste, the result will be that you eat a bunch of sweet tasting or salty tasting things. We just simply do not have nutrient receptors. And we didn't need them because in the nature, that if you did the right thing, there's no problem. The problem is that with technology, we've developed ways to get this sweet or salt without going through the other long steps of adding nutrient value. And now we're involved in, I won't call it an arms race. I think our speaker pretty much identified it. It is an arms race in which the people who want to make a profit want to develop foods that have very little cost, i.e., no nutrient value, but at the same time directly stimulate those reward receptors. And this all go through a common pathway, the same pathway that is involved in terms of drug addictions and is the same pathways that we use in terms of eating food and so forth. So it is a difficult chat that I really understand those who have kids who face this super challenge because you're working against biology when in terms of how our bodies are designed when you're trying to get folks to eat nutrient foods. The real change has to be an institutional change. We got to find a way to get our institutions to focus on developing tasty nutrient foods rather than in terms of getting something that will cause people to eat a lot of, but which has no nutrient value and is relatively inexpensive to make.
And that's what's occurring now, thank God. And hopefully I for one hope Kennedy would get passed through that process and get affirmed as HSS. He's coming after all of coming after all of that. And it's kind of frankly, guys, they're spraying chemicals in the, chemtrail, spraying stuff everywhere. You say you're growing, you farm, trying to grow organic or this or that, and they're spraying down these gazillion chemicals. You got so many avenues that are working against us, trying to be healthy and get real food. But yeah, so it's like, so finally it's going to be institutionalized, I hope. It's a focus of topic of discussion right now.
So let me make a comment as we go to our final comments. The reason I think this topic is so important, especially with our country going in whatever direction it is or is not going, that we need to have our families deal with self-preservation. I don't mean using preservatives, but we need to be as healthy as possible. And we need to know that what's out there commercially making people profit is not necessarily in your good intent. So for example, I do love hot dogs, but I know that won't leave me around to see all of my grandkids. I know it won't be healthy for them. I know I want them to eat more healthy than I do. So it's motivating me to do personal good for myself and my family. So whether it tastes good or not, we have to start getting educated so that we know the best choice for ourselves individually. We know that there's politics and there's money in food, money in drugs. So we need to find out what is in our personal best interest. The one I will say that we're very conflicted about is the role of infectious disease. So some people say you need to sterilize things, you need to have vaccinations, etc. And there are people who need to say that no, you don't need it. So we have to figure that out for ourselves. On the Black Health Trust, we believe people need to be treated and cautioned against infectious disease and be appropriately vaccinated. Other people don't. I don't think any one group has all of the answers. But for now, I'd like to thank Ms. Moore for coming on and for answering questions. I'd like to ask you to have any final concluding comments, and then we'll go to our moderators. Dr. Ms. Moore?
I would say, eat real food, the way God created it. Every time man comes along and try to alter it, it fails and it won't work. So eat real food. It grows from the ground. It's fresh. It's alive. It has that life force. It nourishes your cells, your tissues, your organs, and gives you quality of life. I never took a prescription. I got into nutrition at the age of 16. Never took a prescription drug in my life. I have nothing, no diseases or anything. It works. It works. And I'm not going to tell you my age, but it's up there. And people think it's way half of what it actually is. Nutrition work. We are what we eat. We are what we repeatedly do. That's that's the cause. It's right there. You have multiple factors that come, but we have to eat every day anyway. Eat smart, eat real food, make it work for you, not against you.
So, Ms. Moore, and I tell everybody on here, you and I have been friends for a long time. So there's two major comments I want to make. One is I like the example you gave of life power of grass growing up through concrete. That's great. But the other thing I want to say that the book that you quote was written by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You are what you eat. I like that very much. Ms. Romero.
Hi again. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for all the great information that you gave us today. I would just like to say again how important it is to educate our kids on eating healthy. That's where change starts. Like Dr. Maxey said, making changes for the benefit of your loved ones can be a great motivator. So keep that in mind when you're preparing your meals. And thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hines.
Thank you again, Ms. Moore, and thank you for letting me take off a little bit of stress on some of the things when I'm trying to do, like, oh, I'm getting something right. So I appreciate that. And I absolutely hear you in the context of, striving for something, right? Like you don't have to be there right now, but you're striving for something. So I appreciate that.
I would like your email address or something so I can give you some tips because I don't feel like I appropriately answered you. Okay.
We'll see that you get it. Before we go to you, Dr. Walks, let's ask Dr. Lawson if he's got some conclusion finally.
Again, I just want to make the point that I always made before. You're not just eating for the nutritional value, it also stimulates and gives reassurance. It has an antidepressant effect. We do research showing that you deprive of certain vitamins, you develop depression. Yet at the same time, in many of our radio, TV shows, especially in our neighborhoods, what are they encouraging people to do? Have marijuana farms, which, as far as I know, has no nutritional value. But at the same time, it's trying to address the needs. So the idea is what we need to do is to let folks know if you want to feel good, improve your mental health, go out, eat some healthy foods rather than simply trying to get marijuana, fentanyl, and so forth as a way of getting self-preservation.
So I have an important question for you, Doctor. Why do they, on farms, why do they have salt licks for the cows and horses?
Dr. Lawson is back on mute.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Ivan Waltz.
Dr. Lawson, if you can come back next week and tell us about the salt licks for the horses and the cows, we appreciate that. My comment, Dr. Maxey, first of all, thank you again, Ms. Moore. I think having grown up for part of my life out in Pomona, I know exactly where Fontana and Loma Linda and Rancho Cucamonga and all those places are. And Loma Linda has developed a culture of nutrition and lifestyle and what have you. And I think that it's important for us to be able to learn some lessons from folks who really take this seriously. The one comment I do have to make, I hope that RFK, if he's confirmed, does something to promote nutrition. Certainly, if you look at him and the way he works out and all of that, he looks like he's super fit and he takes good care of himself. I worry a little bit about some of the statements about vaccines. I worry a little bit about some of the push to deregulate a lot of things across the new administration. And so I am a man of faith and a praying person. And I pray that we can get a lot of the good that comes out of all of these questions. And I pray that we can miss some of the bad that comes out of the suppositions that people bring with them. So thank you for the nutritional value in your talk.
Thank you so much. Dr. Barbara Neighbor Stevens in Tennessee.
Thank you, Dr. Maxey. And I want to say, Ms. Moore, I really enjoyed your talk with us today and hope that you will come back again to take some of the concepts a step further. You know, I am always saying use common sense, but I can't help but say use common sense today and encourage people to, if you have the opportunity to talk with some of your older generation family members, talk with them. Because a lot of what was said today, my grandmother used to say to me as I was growing up, and she was the one who primarily taught me how to cook. She didn't believe that we needed to, well, there were a lot of issues. Growing up where I grew up, at the time that I was growing up, there weren't a lot of places Black people could go. So there was that. But in addition to that, when things began to loosen up, she used to still say she did not really want to go out to eat because she didn't know what people were putting in the food. She couldn't see them preparing it. And when the doctors went off on this whole thing about don't eat butter, just eat margarine, she would say, this makes no sense to me. Why would I eat all these artificial things? When if you eat butter, you don't have to eat, a cup of butter. Just flavor your food with I mean, just things like that. So have some conversations. I know what Dr. Hines is saying. She's struggling trying to do the right thing for her kids. All our mothers want to do the right thing for their kids, but we may be making it a little bit more complicated than it has to be. And the final thing I want to say is, if I can help you edit your cookbook, just let me know.
Will do. I love what you just said. Common sense.
Yeah. So in my final, not final, what's the word you use, Dr. Walsh, instead of final?
We don't want to make final comments now because we want to be around tomorrow. We would like to have some closing or concluding comments, Dr. Maxey.
Okay, so my closing and concluding talk is, one, I have a question. Is there any beneficial value to chocolate? And is there a difference between light and dark chocolate? That's one. And then I want to say that I really enjoyed your talk, and we do want to come back again, and we'll get you more familiar with Zoom so you can show your slides next time. But is there a difference between light chocolate and dark chocolate, and then nutritional value on either?
Yes, dark chocolate is the way to go. At least 78% cacao. Cacao is a Spanish name for chocolate. It's full of magnesium. That's why it's healthy. It's full of magnesium. So yes, dark chocolate is the way to go.
So Snickers is therefore good for you then, right?
Oh, not sneakers. I learned that doing nutrition consultations, because I say, do you eat sweets? I said, yeah, I eat chocolate. And I used to, in my mind, some way I was associating that with dark chocolate. And I said, oh, what type of sweets? Oh, well, Snickers and Mr. Good bars and all of this. But yeah, dark chocolate, beneficial.
Well, thank you so much. Everybody have a great Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Simon, for your help. Have a great day, my co-moderators. Thank you, Dr. Barbara Neighbor-Stevens, Dr. Walsh, Dr. Hines, and Ms. Romero, and Dr. Lawson, of course. Have a great day.
Good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.